Hello and welcome to the August 10th SIG AWS meeting. Bob and I are going to be running the show today. Justin is away on vacation, so we're going to do the best we can. It looks like folks are entering an agenda now, but if you have anything you want to bring up, feel free to add it, and we will go through as usual. And it looks like the first one we have is AWS CSI Driver. Can anybody provide more information on this issue?
Yeah, I put it there. We are implementing the CSI driver for AWS, and currently it's in a public repo, but on just people GitHub account. So we are looking for another place where to put it, and preferably also to run some CI around, so requests get tested before merging and so on. Do we have a SIG AWS has some GitHub project or GitHub repo where to put this?
Nisha, you're muted.
God, tech problems. Sorry about that. Just to add what Jan said, I think we want the CSI driver that Jan and Fabio have worked on to move under SIG AWS as a sub-project. So we've been also working internally with the EBS team, and they've helped us surface certain issues with EBS that makes it difficult for the CSI driver to perform as expected. And there is back and forth dialogue and debate that's going on between our teams and the Jan and other folks from Docker. So our proposal is to move this project, which sits in a private repo, onto SIG AWS as a sub-project. And if that's okay with everyone, then I can create the repo and get it going and move it under Kubernetes 6. Jan, am I stating this right? That's your ask, right?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Would it be possible to do sort of a lazy consensus here and maybe open up an issue or kick off an email thread that sort of explains the action you plan on taking, so that if folks have any concerns, there's at least a place for them to voice those concerns and then just move forward, like you just said, regardless?
Sure. I can take that action to follow up.
Okay.
Chris, I don't know how opinionated you are on this, but my personal opinionation is that an issue is a better way to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have a preference for that. If you don't have a strong preference,
I always prefer issues over emails. But yeah, just a place where if somebody has a concern that they feel like they have a place where they can express it is all I'm really concerned about.
Great. So we'll do that. Excellent. What else is on that's the other tech issue. I have to look over at the other screen on the agenda.
The next one is, what is Authenticator release roadmap? And there's a link to, looks like an issue for the AWS IAM Authenticator.
Yeah, just basically wondering if there's a release being planned, or are we waiting for in-flight PRs to land and then we could cut another release? I don't know. It's mostly to do with the fact that when you go to GitHub releases, you still find binaries that are called Hepto Authenticator, and EKSQL users have to download one of those binaries, and some people install it with GoGet, some people install it otherwise. And so just wondering if there is any release being planned anytime soon.
I could probably take this one. Yeah, Ilya, we are definitely planning a release, and I was going to wait till the CRD PR was merged, and I think that'll be probably next week. I do want a couple more reviewers on it, but yeah, so I mean, we could potentially get a release out before that, and then but we'd have to do another one right after. So unless you're.
No, that's okay. Yeah, next week is fine. Yeah, I mean, we kind of planning to have a workaround anyway for the time being. So, what is just sort of how far do we go and working around it, right?
Yeah.
So this is good. This is good. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Cool. Anything else on that issue? Okay, moving on. Looks like we're just adding a new one now. AWS Infrastructure for testing. How do we enable this development in this SIG?
This is great. We should do this. Yeah, I think.
Has this been done before? Or
Yeah,
is there some lesson learned from maybe SIG GCP? Because people need ECR as well as AWS credits to like do their testing or even develop code.
I think that probably the issue here is that I think this is actually a SIG testing issue, not a SIG AWS issue. So we probably need to reach out to Aaron and go through that. But I guess if the crew here feels that this really is something we should just directly work with SIG testing folks on, then we can do that. If there's an alternate opinion, then we can discuss that.
But what about stuff that people are developing and they want to, develop and work in AWS, save their images in ECR? Because this is an issue both with CSI Driver as well as I know Jan brought this up and Seth also.
So what's the issue? Is it a technical issue or is it a
Well,
financial
no,
issue?
it's more about having some infrastructure so it helps people who are developing code. And I know we need to give some infrastructure to SIG testing too, but as people are working with AWS and figuring out issues and writing code, they also need some infrastructure for dev.
So it might be useful here to sort of like gather a list of requirements, what folks need, and then maybe even what Amazon could offer. I'm assuming you guys are considering making some sort of offering here. And then also a little bit of history. This is probably one of the weirdest things I'll ever say, but Google has an AWS account that they run, and I used to have access to it. I know Justin, I think, has access to it, and there's a few other folks who used to work on COPS long ago who have access to it. So there might be some resources we could get there. And then also the CNCF has come out and said that they're willing to kind of like help with infrastructure costs behind the scenes. So maybe an email to the SIG and looping in some of those folks might be helpful.
I think we have a pretty robust conversation with CNCF about how to support the cross project CI and that kind of environment.
Okay.
I think there are a couple of patterns here. One that we definitely want to support is we want to try to find a way to support developers around SIG AWS with credits to support dev work. So we need to figure that out. But I think the structural question on specific testing, how do we set them up, who has access to them. I think that will definitely happen in SIG testing. There will be an effort in SIG testing. I think maybe the question is there also a SIG AWS effort in parallel? I think your question about what are the requirements here is a good thing. It might be worth it for us to try to figure out, is there like a good common pattern that other people are willing to do as well? Maybe that complicates matters too. But anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there are specific things how tests run in GCP at the moment, right? Because kind of like nobody other than people at Google have access to that infrastructure, and the triggering is done through like some kind of CI that is hosted in Google, right? So I wonder whether for SIG AWS and the AWS kind of project-wide infrastructure, or whatever that may look like, whether that would follow a similar pattern or TBD.
I think this is another case where we probably need to write an issue or a cap or something and describe at least a proposal and then let people throw rocks at it till we're happy.
Okay.
What do you think, Chris? Is that a good path?
Yes, I think that's a good path. Sorry for the delay. In order for me to use my super obnoxious mechanical keyboard, I have to mute, and then I'm running Arch Linux, so every time I mute, I have to reset my ALSA driver. So it's just kind of annoying for me to mute my microphone, but I just had it muted, sorry.
And that mechanical keyboard is super loud on the mic, too.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to be polite, but just bear with me because it's a bit of a hassle for me to mute and then unmute. So I can give hand signals whenever necessary.
That'll work. Well, while you're unmuted, do you want to do the next thing on the item on the list?
Yeah, so the next one is mine. I gave a very quick update yesterday on the community call. Bob, I know you and Nishi were there, but in case folks missed it, well, I guess, like, before I even go into this, let me give a little bit of history here. So, like, about a year and a half ago, Robert Bailey from Google, the GKE team, and myself got together and said, the infrastructure deployment scene in Kubernetes is fragmented, and we hope to standardize that. And that started the super controversial effort around building out a cluster API for managing and mutating clusters. This is relevant to this SIG because COPS is sort of the first person or the first project to go through and describe, what does a Kubernetes cluster look like. We kind of took the lessons learned in COPS, lessons learned in Kubicorn, and we standardized this API that now works for GKE. And myself and a handful of folks at HepGeo, and I think Justin's been involved, and Tim St. Clair and some others, started work on building out a cluster API implementation for Amazon. We assigned this SIG as one of the owners, so technically, folks on this call, we all have ownership. We can all, contribute any way we want to, or we can thumbs up or thumbs down things along the way. But I wanted to make sure everyone felt welcome, knew what was going on, and give an update on the work. It's very, very new. Like, we just committed our first main function, but it doesn't actually do anything yet. So Tim St. Clair is working on a document that goes through and sort of describes the requirements and talks about kind of what we want to do. And I'm working on spearheading a document that is aimed at collecting user experiences from running and deploying Kubernetes on Amazon. Everything from hey, what are the AWS rate limits you experienced while interacting with AWS Go SDK, all the way to what was it like when we went through and actually built the resource implementation in COPS and actually tried to create a Kubernetes cluster from thin air for the first time. So if anybody has anything they want to share, I put a link that sort of goes over everything I just said and has pointers to all the various docs. If you want to check them out, please do. And then in general, I think an action item for this SIG is figuring out how involved we want to be and how we can make this whole effort work well for everyone and make these SIG AWS and SIG cluster lifecycle cluster API implementation sort of work in concert together. So I'm going to stop there and let folks give feedback or ask questions, but that's sort of the 10,000 foot view of the cluster API AWS stuff. Okay, if nobody has any questions.
Shoot. One more time, sorry, we were having a mute problem.
I was just saying that Tim gave me an action item to find our side who can participate in the cluster API initiative.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you.
Okay, I said that Timothy, he gave us an action item to assign someone who can participate with you all in the cluster API effort. So I'll just follow up with who that person would be, but expect a response from us by August 10.
Okay, sounds good. And then I am volunteering myself to be in this sort of liaison role. So if there's anything I can do to make folks' lives easier or to answer questions in either direction, to and from the SIG or to and from SIG cluster lifecycle, I'm happy to facilitate wherever necessary. Lots of thumbs ups. I do have another update since I'm unmuted, but I was going to take notes, but I'm going to spare everyone's ears, and I'll take notes here in a second afterwards. This is sort of a COPS update. Again, like I didn't really think I would be saying this anytime soon, but I have been tasked with making a pretty meaningful code change to the COPS code base. I talked with Justin about it. He's on vacation. We're going to sync up next week. But this is in the space of passing API server flags through the cluster spec all the way into NodeUp and looking at solving, the flag concern that, as it stands today, isn't quite as plumbed through as we would like it. Some of the flags that you can define in the cluster spec don't actually make it to the API server. So I will be looking at that in the near future, and then as soon as we figure out a solution there, that's going to probably entail some sort of a release as well. So I'll be putting back on my COPS maintainer hat, at least to help with that feature a little bit as well. And that's all the updates I have. If anybody has anything else they want to bring up, now's a good time.
I have one item.
Okay, I'm going to mute.
I have one item, but it was definitely for like the tail end of the meeting. So I wanted to propose a replacement for myself as the co-chair, and I wanted to nominate Nishi to take that spot. So I'm not quite sure how you want to accomplish this. I'm seeing several thumbs up. There we go. The voting is going well.
Oh, okay.
So would you like to? What do you think, Chris? What's the best way to do that? I know Justin isn't here, but we can probably reach out to him separately.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the way we did this in a handful of other SIGs is if folks right now in the chat could just do a quick +1 so that we can capture your name and the fact that you're +1ing this vote sort of in text. We'll use that, we'll copy and paste that, and then we can just open up a PR to the community repo, and I think we're pretty much good. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. Nishi does fabulous work.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to put through a vote today.
It's better this way, then you didn't have to stress about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, like, you're not off the hook, Bob. Like, we're still gonna be asking you for stuff.
I will still be around and still be working on stuff. So I might say the same for you.
Yeah, I definitely need to be chopping a little more wood and carrying a little more water here. I'm spread so thin across all these other projects I'm working on right now. But this is definitely where my heart is. This is like where it all started, right?
Excellent. All right. Super.
Thank you,
that
folks.
was it. Thank you.
Thank you for the confidence. By the way, Chris, this is going to be the best SIG ever, so you might as well come join us often.
Okay. Okay, yeah. If nobody has anything else, I think we should call it. Yeah.
Let's call it.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thanks for joining, everyone.